I am Bridget Lake, president of the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we are here with Vincent Falcone running for Orange and Osceola County 9th Circuit Judge Group 39. Our premier virtual Eastside Regional Hob Nob is presented by Lucas Land Group, an Oviedo-based family-run business with interests throughout Central Florida. And our sponsor, Duke Energy, our radio sponsor, 96.5 WDBO. Now, before we get into our conversation, let's watch a quick commercial from our sponsor, Duke Energy.
Across Florida, we're listening to customers like you, and we're working hard to build the brighter energy future you and your family deserve. That's why we're making smart investments in the grid to improve reliability and prevent outages, to use more clean, renewable energy like solar, and to give you better control over your energy use today and in the years ahead. We're Duke Energy, and we're building a smarter energy future for you.
And now we are back with Vincent Falcone running for Orange and Osceola County 9th Circuit Judge Group 39. He is one of our candidates at the Eastside Regional Hob Nob. How are you doing today, Vincent?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time out today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been married for almost 15 years. I've got a son, Dominic, who's 10 years old, originally from right outside of New Orleans. That's where I met my wife. We ended up in Orlando almost by chance when we evacuated from Hurricane Katrina while I was in the middle of law school. And I ended up working for one of the law firms here, the Ackerman firm. My wife and I just fell in love with Orlando, decided it's a place where I wanted to start my career and raise a family. So I went and finished up law school at Columbia, New York, came back down here, started working for the Ackerman firm for the first 3 years or so of my practice. I'm now at King Blackwell, Zender and Wormuth. I mainly do complex commercial work. Also, it's beyond that, it's a pretty broad practice area. We do some municipal representation, some voting rights cases. I was part of the team that represented the League of Women Voters and Common Cause in the redistricting challenge in 2012. We also represent some of the lawyers and law firms in town in malpractice cases. So it's a pretty broad practice area, very complex cases. And, you know, being a judge has been a dream of mine since I've started practice, since I was in law school. And one of the reasons why I think I'd be a good judge is the cases that I tend to handle are the most important issues that my clients are facing at any point in time. They're often business issues where you have, local business or business owner who's facing the biggest issue that that company has at that point in time. You know, the company itself may be at stake, business's reputation may be at stake, there may be a lot of money at stake, and it's an honor to have a client come in and turn over those issues to you and to help the client sort through that and hopefully reach a good result. And that's true of really any practice area for a lawyer. If you're a family law attorney, it may be the biggest issue that family is facing at that point in time. You may have child custody issues. If it's a personal injury case, you may have somebody very seriously injured. And then in criminal cases, you may have a victim of a very serious crime and a person whose liberty is at stake. These are the most important issues that face our society and that face the citizens of Orange and Osceola County. And I think that's a situation where you need a good, dedicated, diligent judge. And I've seen the difference that kind of judge can make in my cases for my clients. I view the role of a judge as being a public servant. I think that's a role that I could fit well into. I think I've got the right qualifications and demeanor to be a judge. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions.
Thank you. That was a great start. Let me go back to the New Orleans and the New York portion of this. As I thought about food, when you talked about both of those areas, which place has better food?
I've got to give it to New Orleans. I think New Orleans is one of the most unique places in America, and food-wise, it's just got such a great array of restaurants. Now, New York has some great restaurants too, but food-wise, I think New Orleans is pretty close to my heart.
Was there a particular restaurant that you would have to go back to if you went to New Orleans? There was just that favorite place of yours?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if it's sort of a big outing, I think Galatoire's is great. Restaurant August. If it's just a casual meal, there's a lot of great seafood places. I like Acme Oyster House. There's a place called Arnaud's that I grew up going to. So whenever we go back to New Orleans, there's plenty of food options. We don't run out.
And you mentioned a little bit about why you wanted to run for judge and what really compelled you at this moment to run for judge.
Yeah, so I've been practicing for about 12 years now, and I feel like I'm at the point in my practice where I've been to trial, I've had a lead role at trial, I've handled enough cases, I've got my own client base, and I take a lead role in the majority of my cases. I think I've got the experience now to do the job. I think the kind of cases we handle and that I handle are just all over the place. We deal with all kinds of issues. So experience-wise, I think I'm there. Also, this election cycle, there happen to be 3 open seats with retiring judges. I'm in one of those seats, running for election right now. So I thought that there was an opportunity there to run for election, achieve my dream. And I thought I had to take that opportunity. But then also, beyond that, like I said in my lead up, I really do view a judge as being a public servant. You're there to serve the citizens of the community, resolve the toughest issues that are facing the litigants at that point in time, the most important issues. And practice-wise, I've been very fortunate to be at a firm that handles interesting, high-profile cases. I've got the best partners I could ask for, best clients I could ask for, the best practice I could ask for. It's not a situation where I'm looking for a pay raise or a steady job. I've always wanted to be in that public service role. I've always wanted to be a judge. And since there was an opportunity and I feel like I'm there experience-wise now, that's why I decided to do it at this moment in time.
And you talk about being a public servant. How are you involved in your community?
Sure. So in terms of, I'll start with the legal organizations, the bar community. I've had an active role in a number of our local bar organizations. For the Orange County Bar Association, been involved as an editor of their magazine, The Briefs. I've co-chaired the Business Law Committee and received an award for Outstanding Committee Chair that year. I've, on the Federal Bar Association side, I'm currently president-elect of the Orlando chapter. I've been treasurer, secretary, been on the board for a number of years. And then in terms of pro bono service for the community, I've been a guardian ad litem through the Legal Aid Society for at least the last 8 years. And every year I have 1 or 2 cases where I'm representing the interest of neglected or abused children in the juvenile dependency system on a pro bono basis. That's been very important work to me. I think in that situation, the juvenile system where you've got case workers, case managers who are overwhelmed, Department of Children and Family lawyers who have very heavy dockets, and parties before the court who often can't afford private counsel. It's important to have a diligent guardian ad litem who's going to look out and advocate for the interests of children, but it's also very important to have a good judge who's going to hear out both sides, work hard, and reach the right result for some of the most vulnerable members of our society. So that's work that I'm very proud of, guardian ad litem work. I've also served on the Legal Aid Board of Trustees, and in that role helped work on the programs many programs that Legal Aid offers for our citizens who often can't afford private counsel. I've been chair of the Legal Aid Awards Committee. So those are some of the ways that I've been involved in the community.
And you mentioned all of your experience that you have. Through this experience, what is the greatest injustice that you see in law today?
The greatest injustice. Speaking for my own cases, Like I mentioned, I had the opportunity to represent the League of Women Voters in Common Cause in the redistricting challenge that started in 2012, didn't conclude until 2016. But that was a case with a number of trials, a number of Florida Supreme Court appeals, a number of federal cases. And that was a situation where the voting rights of our citizens, the case law calls it voting is the bedrock of our democracy. It is critically important. It goes to the core of our system of government. And when gerrymandering occurs, that breaks down. You have the political branch of our government drawing districts that may take away the right to vote of particular citizens, and that's a terrible thing. And it really took not only the legal system and lawyering, but a dedicated and independent judiciary to fix that problem and ultimately find that the 2012 maps were unconstitutional, to direct new maps, and that was both in the congressional and on the state Senate side. So that's something I'm very proud of, that we were able to ensure that the citizens of Florida had their full undiluted right to vote. So I think that was important. But then also, I look at my guardian ad litem work, and you see a situation where either pro se litigants or litigants without the means for private counsel, they sometimes just don't have the same access to justice as parties who are very wealthy and can afford private counsel or very high-powered law firms. And that's something that we've struggled with as a community and a bar and a judiciary for a long time. Because of the nature of our economy in Florida and Central Florida in particular, affording a private lawyer is often not only a burden, but just plain out of reach for a lot of members of our community. And that's something that the court system and the justice system struggles with. Because if you are a pro se litigant and you don't have counsel, you may have a good case, you may be on the right side of an argument, but you may just not know the right procedure to follow. You may not know what is a legal argument as opposed to just an argument based on principle. So you're not going to be able to present your case in the most effective way, and that's a struggle. So I think finding ways to solve that access to justice problem through either pro bono programs like our Legal Aid Society offers, I don't know if, I suppose injustice would be the right word, but that's something that our legal system and we as a bar need to do a better job at, and that's certainly something I'd be committed to as a judge.
Thank you. And I have one last question for you. What is the greatest trait that you would bring to the bench?
And I'll come back to something I said when I started. I truly do view this job, the job of a judge, as being a public servant. Luckily we've got some very good judges here in Orange and Osceola County, but sometimes you hear of situations where a judge sort of takes on the black robe. You hear black robe syndrome, and that judge might be arrogant or dismissive or shut down arguments from one side because the power and authority may go to his or her head. And I think that's exactly the wrong approach. I think a judge should be humble, respectful of all sides, hear the issues, and then also decisive. One thing that I really struggle with is when I have a client and you're in court and the judge either will not reach a decision or reaches a decision that isn't necessarily consistent with the law and splits the issues just to give one side or the other a partial victory, or it takes a long time to get a ruling. Maybe you never get a ruling at all. That's a terrible situation, because a client who goes into court and feels like the judge is being dismissive or never reaches a ruling or isn't working hard or isn't trying to understand the law, you may win, you may lose in the situation, but the client loses a little bit of faith that the system is working the way that it should. And I think that's terrible. I think if a judge works hard, hears out both sides, reaches a decision in a timely way, one that makes sense, both sides can accept the issue. You may not like it. You may want to take the judge up on appeal, but you can at least understand it. You're not going to question the process. And I think a quality that I have shown in practice, you can ask any of my colleagues, is I work very hard. I love the law. I love complex issues. I like trying to understand them and reach the right result. And I understand the need to get things done in a timely manner, because you hear justice delayed is justice denied, and that is true. You can't have parties in uncertainty when their greatest issues are at stake in that point in time. And those are all qualities that I bring to the bench: public service, hard work, diligence, and just an understanding of the need to be decisive and reach a fair and even-handed result.
Well, thank you so much. This is Vincent Falcone running for Orange and Volusia County 9th Circuit Judge, Group 39. He is one of our candidates at the Eastside Regional Hob Nob. Our virtual Hob Nob will be on June 30th starting at 5:30, and we hope to see you there. Vincent, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.